everybody, and welcome to the Commercial Integrator Expo. I'm here with Kevin Keeler, and our presentation today is Smart Homes, Smart Home Offices.
So, go ahead.
First, let's thank the IMCCA, which brought us here. The IMCCA is a great organization, and we really need it. It's the only nonprofit, vendor-neutral organization in our industry that's just out there to provide information, educate, and help everyone. So please go to their website and see.
And there's a booth on the show floor, and you can also, if you're here, you can go visit it, and it's also free to join.
Yes.
Well, my name is Kevin Keeler. I'm half analyst and half consultant. I've been in the technology business for a long time. I originally started writing video games for the Commodore 64 and VIC-20, and that's when I fell in love with technology that could be used at home and in the office. And today I help large organizations with their collaboration and communication choices, and then I work with vendors helping them with their strategies. And I also lead a fantastic group, BC Strategies, a group of independent analysts and consultants that includes people with lots of expertise like David Maldo here.
Yes, I am a proud member of BC Strategies. On to my slide here. And I do a lot of the same stuff as Kevin. I also do the consulting, analyst, media. I've been doing it for nearly 20 years. I started out doing a lot of writing. Greenhouse research and telepresence options. I wrote hundreds of pieces. And then recently I realized that I think video is a little more fun and more high impact. So I've been pushing the YouTube channel, where I now have over 500,000 views. You can check that out on YouTube at Let's Do Video. And you can check out everything about me at letsdovideo.com.
Fantastic.
So what is a smart home?
I don't know. What is a smart home? I think you had AI draw a picture of a smart home.
Yeah, AI seems to think a smart home is very blue and glowy. But when I think of a smart home, the first thing I think of is devices. I think of the Nest, which by the way is here at the show.
Yeah, no, I saw lots of great home office devices.
Anything else that you want to say?
No, I mean, I think, we're seeing the evolution of just being able to, have additional sensors and monitoring, and of course then, integrating all that together. So, in the, we had unified communications, always bringing together some things. I think, truthfully, in a smart home, we're seeing all kinds of sensors and appliances and lighting and communication all integrated together. So that to me makes it potentially smart or potentially frustrating, depending on how well of an integration job you did.
And what makes it exciting and fun for me is that all these devices are really designed to adapt to the human needs. It's really, there's a lot of electronics, but it's really all about the human. The Nest is making us comfortable. All the devices, the robot vacuum, it's keeping it clean for us. So it really is all about the human experience, even though we're talking a lot about technology.
And then, we have this concept of a smart office. I mean, the smart office, it's, like a smart home, it's not particularly well defined. I mean, I think ultimately, smart in this context means, putting the right tools in front of you or around you to help you get your job done more efficiently. And so, for me, a smart office is when the user gets up on Monday morning and they want to do their work. The technology is not a hindrance to them. They don't start off Monday morning cursing because something is doing an upgrade or they can't figure it out how to turn things on. But it really helps them get their job done and almost disappears into the background.
And it's funny, you said we haven't defined it. It's true we haven't defined it. I asked AI to draw this, and I said, AI, draw me a smart office. And look, it drew a regular office. It had no idea what to do. This is a very regular office. So again, what is a smart office? And I think, as Kevin said, it's really about our workflow. We're not quite there yet. We're going to have some more AI, but I'm doing things to make my office smart. I use a Stream Deck, and I press a button, and it changes all the lights and brings up the apps I want instead of having to manually do everything. The more that's automated, the idea that eventually we just walk in and sit down, and our projects will come up, and our meetings will come up, and we just work instead of figuring out, how to work instead of managing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, what are the challenges with smart offices?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is, recognizing that often people, use their home office to do personal things, and then they use their home office to do corporate things. And I think it's important that there is some separation, and it depends on the organization. And we're going to talk about some security and data loss prevention in more detail. But one of the challenges is having this dual modality where I want to be able to work and have it. You talked about when you walk in, it's almost like in the perfect world it would sense what mode you're in, maybe based on time of day, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit and maybe relax, play a game, watch a streaming program, but then during the workday, maybe I walk in and I'm gonna be about project plans and Excel spreadsheets, right? So certainly that dual modality can be a challenge.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And again, I asked AI to draw smart office challenges, and it has the guy planking while he's trying to type. I just thought these were funny. But when I first was thinking of smart office challenges, I was just thinking about home office challenges. How to keep the kids and the pets from running in when you're working. How to deal with bad lighting. Those kind of things. Those aren't really smart office. Those are just home office challenges. When we were preparing this deck, we had a big discussion, and this kind of freaked me out because I have a nice PC at home. It's powerful. I built it myself. I put a good, a CPU in there. I put a good graphics card in there. I could do all my video editing and all my work. But if I wasn't self-employed, if I was working at a company, when I would go home, they would say, "You can't use that. You can't connect it to our network. It's not secure. You have to use this little laptop and do some sort of dock thing." I'm like, Kevin, is that for real? I don't like that. I love my little battle station. I can't just use my battle station for work. That's not how it is in the corporate world. It's crazy.
No, and I think, because I work, with large organizations, and a lot of, independent consultants or analysts, work either for themselves or have a couple of people, they may not be familiar with all of the security and data loss prevention that is associated with larger companies, especially depends on, what industry you're in. I've worked with a number of large, audit firms or consulting, tax consulting firms. And they have very sensitive information. And yes, they're not going to want that information on your tricked out, gaming PC. So let's go on to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the security and data loss protection challenges, right? Because as an AV professional, you may want to put in specific equipment into, let's say, an executive's home office to make it a smart office. But as you mentioned, the organization may say, okay, that's fine if you've got a dedicated equipment that stays there, a dedicated PC, but a lot of times people bring their laptop home, and there's a couple of things. For security, there's something called conditional access, and this is the concept of not only do you need to know your username and password and multi-factor authentication, but there's additional tests. It might say, I don't care if you know all those things, you can't log into a non-corporate device. Or, hey Kevin, I noticed you logged in Denver in the morning, and now you're logging in from Japan. And so it'll use sometimes AI, sometimes just rules to say, wait a second, that seems like a risky kind of set of circumstances, so we're gonna, block that, or at least, ask additional questions, right? And other things that happen is, if you want to prevent data leaving your company, you can put a whole bunch of security filters. Sometimes if you send an email from a bunch of firms, it'll pop up that there's an attachment and say, hey, you have to kind of assert that you're sending this, and you realize it's going to an external participant, and you have to have a good reason. And then people, do things like disable or only allow you to plug in encrypted USB drives, because then that's a way that information can walk outside your organization. So if you don't work with the IT group in a corporate setting, this laptop comes home, maybe you pick these fantastic USB devices, and all of a sudden, that doesn't work. It's not a smart office because it doesn't work at all. Then on top of things, sometimes devices that you want to use, you might need to have local admin access. While users love that, and certainly if you buy a PC for your own company, you have that local admin access. access, but in many corporations, that isn't provided. Yes, that's a pain, but it's also a safety and security concern, and it makes it easier for corporate IT to support, because they don't want device, drivers that sometimes get installed with, some of these cool USB devices. And then, of course, there's a lot of antivirus and security software that it sometimes makes your computer chug a little slower. And certainly for video applications, it can cause, some negative artifacts to the video and audio. So certainly something to be aware of.
Yeah, my only final thought on this, a lot of times when we do these kind of presentations, we have a setup and a pitch. The setup is here's the problem, and the pitch is here's how you fix it. Problem, solution, problem, solution. This isn't one of those things. The next slide isn't here's the solution to it. This is just the way the world is. If you work for a company that has security issues, these hurdles are going to be there, and you'll have to deal with it. It's not the end of the world. It's just an extra hurdle to jump over. This isn't something we need to fix or get rid of. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you said on the earlier presentation, you go to the next slide, I thought you made a really good point, which is it used to be, people would pick a particular hardware, whether it's like Hamburg or what have you, and that would drive kind of the type of environment you have. But today, really to have a smart home office in a corporate setting, you really have to start by figuring out, okay, what is the primary platform, the predominant platform that this individual is going to use. And I'm going to use the example of, an executive, because a lot of times they have more tricked out kind of dedicated workspaces in their home offices. So you definitely, you don't necessarily get to pick your favorite video bars or your favorite cameras, because the cameras and all of the devices are going to need to be certified to work with, the collaboration platform that was chosen for the organization.
And we'll think into certification in our coming slide. But in here, we have our audience, our great IT people. You all know what the good gear is. You know what would be best for your customers. But sometimes your customers say, "I want this," and you're like, "It's really not the best choice for what you want." But what do you do when the customer says, "Hey, integrator, this is what I want. Make it work"?
Well, I do think, that's where you have to see what is driving, because I think a lot of times, as I mentioned, from a support perspective, if this is predominantly going to be, used for office work, there may be limitations that, a lot of individuals try to do this in the office. They want a particular laptop, and most organizations have certain models that they're willing to support. They have spares, they have parts for those, and you could love a particular laptop, but you're not getting that laptop for work. You can buy it, whatever you want personally, but you're not going to do work. And a lot of times, all the peripherals as well, to make sure that when it breaks, there's spares, and also the training aspect, right? Even though, these things are simple to use, they do have different buttons and things like that. And if you're going to need support on that, the corporate IT wants to know what device you have, and they don't want to have a million devices that they need to familiarize themselves with.
My quick thought on this, and again, I had AIs draw some images with me, and I wanted to show the overwhelming choices of technology and peripherals at the home. I think my answer to this would have been different 5 or 10 years ago than it is now. 5 or 10 years ago, I would have said, some gear worked and some gear didn't. And I would have said, you have to sit down with your customer and say, look, do you want this to work or not? I know this gear works, you have to trust my recommendation. If the customer said, I had a system using this gear, okay, make them sign something that they won't get mad at you when it doesn't work. I don't feel that way anymore, because the stuff works. Our vendors have done a good job. We complained and complained and complained. Make this stuff plug and play, make it all work together. And it kind of does, some better than others, but if you like video bar A and your customer wants video bar B, it's not going to be that much of a problem. You can let your customers choose a little bit more today. This stuff just works.
Yeah, I think, let's talk a little bit about certification. So I think things in general work, but I think that there is some real advantages, whether you're using, all of the key vendors, so Cisco and Zoom and Microsoft, they all have certification programs for their devices. And, in the case, let's say, of Microsoft, they like to put, specialized team buttons on the devices. You know, they argue that it makes it easier. I mean, they're also kind of locking you in a little bit. But
I
the
have a whole
truth,
issue with that.
but the truth of the matter is, you know, if you're not using Teams, or if sometimes some of these devices work mostly, but occasionally they may not, the mute status, for instance, might not reflect if you click on the screen to mute, maybe on the device, it doesn't light up and mute, or sometimes you can't unmute on the device if the device driver, has a mismatch. Now, those aren't catastrophic problems. It's still gonna get the job done, but arguably having it certified means that it's gonna work. And then all the features, when they add things like voice isolation or better codecs, you don't run into where you sometimes have a mismatch. So I got a beautiful Poly P21 monitor that I think they've now discontinued. But out of the gate, it had a mismatch on device drivers, because both, I think Teams was trying to do noise cancellation and the Poly device was, because they hadn't updated the device driver. And the net result was I was getting echo, so it was problematic. And I think certified devices, they're designed to ensure the optimal end user experience. It helps with IT supportability. Sometimes there's better ability to monitor these devices, which if you have thousands or tens of thousands out there, that becomes very important. And so many organizations will only support certified devices, because if they have a problem and they've got to go back to the vendor, and if you're not using a certified device, in some ways, sometimes the vendors, consider that an easy out and say, hey, it's not us, it might be the device you're using.
I've completely flipped on this issue. When I first came into the industry and I heard about certification, I thought it was kind of marketing hype stuff. Okay, so my friends at Aver Cameras or at Poly, whatever, they put out a new camera and they call Zoom and they say, oh, so we send you a check and you can let us put our logo on our put your logo on the camera? No, we have a Zoom logo on our camera. I thought it was all complete fakery and nonsense. And then I talked to my friends at Zoom, and then I talked to my friends at the camera companies, and it is real. And the motivation for it, it's not just to make you feel comfortable that the camera works with it. Zoom and Teams and Microsoft and Cisco, they know that if you have a bad Zoom call, you blame Zoom. You don't blame the camera, you don't blame the microphones, you don't blame anything else, you blame Zoom, and then you stop using Zoom. And Zoom doesn't want that. So they want to make sure that if you have a good experience. So the way they do that is, they bring the cameras into the labs and they beat the heck out of them. All kinds of calls, everything they can do, and they try to get a bad call, and when they get a bad call, they say fix it. And it's a list of things you have to add. I mean, in some cases, they have to redesign the hardware, not just the software, but the hardware of the device to get it certified. So when you get a Zoom certified device from a company like Aver, you can say, okay, well, Aver makes great stuff, I'm happy with them, or Poly, or whatever. You say, oh, okay, this one's been through the ringer. Zoom itself made sure that this will be a good experience on Zoom or Teams or whatever. So it is a big deal. It's so much work to get this thing certified. It is not an easy process. So yeah, I look for that certification label. Whereas before I was like, this is the simplest thing. It's really crucial.
Yeah, and I've read some of the certification documents. There's a company, Tech Vision, that does a lot of certification that I've had the opportunity to work with as well. And when you read through, I mean, you see there's some very technical things, but they also are just some, kind of common sense things that are trying to save end users and organizations some headaches, right? And I think, I'm going to move to this next slide because, wireless headphones, a lot of times, they're Bluetooth devices, and yet they come with this dongle. And most of the time, to be certified, they have to come with this dongle. Now, laptops have Bluetooth. You can connect your device to your laptop just using the built-in Bluetooth on the laptop. So why this dongle, right? Is this like, why this extra piece?
Do you ever try connecting Bluetooth to a PC? It does not work well.
Well, and so this is exactly why the dongle, because to be certified, what the manufacturers found was that a lot of times in PCs, the chipset that handles Wi-Fi handles Bluetooth, and the device drivers, maybe the manufacturer, the OEM of the laptop, might have favored Wi-Fi more because let's say they want that to work more. So in their device driver, they've kind of set more power, more cycles to supporting Wi-Fi, which means Bluetooth it's going to have some more latency. And also, in dense situations, i.e. like when people are in an office, it's fine if you're in your home office, but then you come into an office, there's a lot of Bluetooth going on. The dongle, ensures that, the radio and the device driver is matched and you're gonna have a lot less interference. And so it seems simple, it works for the most part, when you're by yourself without other interference, but to be certified, right now, a dongle is required. Now, the manufacturers have said as PCs get better and generally have more horsepower, their intent is not to, require this extra piece, which sometimes you lose, which is a problem. A lot of, the cases now have a spot for the dongle, but when they originally came out, they didn't, and then of course that's such a small piece that you would often lose it, which was a real
Yeah, I
problem.
like that the cases now will have a little spot for the dongle inside the case with the earbuds.
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be, they've kind of wisened up that that's very easy to lose.
I think about it, there's a reason why your mouse and your keyboard have a dongle. Why aren't they Bluetooth? Right? Just PCs are bad. And it's not just with interference with other, I can't even get my PC to do Bluetooth.
Because you built it.
I
You built it
downloaded
yourself.
special software, I bought a thing for it, it just doesn't like Bluetooth. And it's not just me, there's a reason they're making these dongles. And the good news is they work great. You plug it in, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to configure it. No, you plug it in, it thinks you're plugging the earphones in. Like the dongle is so well connected to your earphones, it's like plugging in a physical mouse. You plug it in, and it's just recognized, working.
Yep.
Makes me happy.
So there is the devil's in the details, so that's why there's a dongle.
I love this innovation. So in the old days, things were easy because consultants and analysts like us recommended single vendor strategy. If you like Polycom, back in the day, get everything from Polycom. If you like Timbre, you get everything from Timbre. And there were two reasons. One, interop wasn't a thing, and you needed to get everything from one vendor for it to work well. But if it broke, there was one number to call. There's a more aggressive expression that I don't like to use. There's one number to call. So, hey, my video isn't working. I'm getting video from Cisco. Cisco, my video isn't working. They gotta help you. But now, if you have Cisco camera and you're using Zoom and a different microphone and a different, what do? It's really got hard.
Yeah, and I think, back to this is why, because a lot of times those, calls now come into your corporate IT support desk. So this is why I think, they do want to limit the choices. There's an overwhelming number of choices, as your AI drawn picture on previous slides showed. But, when you have a problem, it's nice if, somebody recognizes that device and it's not some new device that they've never heard of, as they step you through trying to figure out which piece is causing your monitor to turn into a fiery inferno, which would be a bad problem.
And the good news again is our vendors have done a wonderful job. 5 or 10 years ago, this would have been a much bigger problem. But it still kind of just works. We don't have that many issues. I can't remember the last bad Teams call or bad Zoom call where the microphone isn't working or the camera's not loading right. Everything just kind of works these days, for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, some final kind of thoughts and takeaways. So integration matters. I mean, I think, we've talked about technical integration, but certainly, from an AV pro's perspective, I'm going to say integration between the AV professionals and the IT professionals, that becomes critical, especially in larger organizations that have some of these security and data loss prevention, whether it's programs or configuration settings in place.
And ideally, it's integrated in a way that just keeps the workflow the same for the user. If I'm driving to the office and I'm at the office and I log into my Excel or my PowerPoint, whatever my tools are, or if I'm home logging into those tools, it shouldn't feel different. It should be whenever I log in, I'm logged into my, my computer, wherever that computer is.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're trying to empower the user, but within kind of the realm of this security concerns, which means, as I said, you need to integrate and work closely with IT as well.
Working with IT is good. I always say to our IT and AV people, you're the solution to all the problems that we talk about. This isn't, Some jobs you get the script and you follow the script. With ABIT, you're problem solvers by nature. You don't walk into rooms and follow a template. You walk into a room and you figure it out. And this is part of where we need you to be just aware of the problem and helping us figure it out, helping the customers figure it out.
Yeah, and I think, and you mentioned this is a problem to be solved, and increasingly I think our expectations have gone up in terms of how productive we can be in, both our home spaces and our office spaces. Sometimes our homes are tricked out and set up exactly as we want. I've heard a number of people make reference to having, 3 monitors at home. And so, when they get into the office, they may want 3 monitors, or at least they want, as you say, they want things to transition well. But I think, so this new problem is a great opportunity that I think is now allowing us to be more productive wherever we are, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and that ties into my final thought, which is, I'm glad we're giving this presentation. Because a few years ago, we would have said, who cares about the home office? Home office is, if you can't make it in that day, try to get something done. Don't make it a waste of time, but tomorrow feel better coming to the office. And now we're saying that the home office productivity is just as important as when you're at the physical office.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions? Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate everyone. And thank you, Kevin. We need to do more of these.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to do more of these.
We're going to do more of these. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.